Ladies and gentlemen, as we fell trees and destroy our forests more rapidly and in an unmeasured manner, we disturb nature's balance in ecosystems whereby plants and trees absorb carbon dioxide in the atmosphere in their lives. Climate change causes extremely cold winters, severe droughts, and killer heat waves, which devastate agriculture, melting of glaciers, devastating flooding, and the rising of sea levels due to the melting of ice in our polar regions. Indeed, the fear is that the rising of sea levels will inundate coastal lands and populations and threaten island communities with disappearance. The associated sea temperature rise is also destroying coral atolls and reefs, thereby adversely impacting marine ecosystems. Disturbingly, within the past 2 decades, the consensus is that the effects of climate change are far more rapid than earlier thought. As a result of the droughts and floods that are brought about due to climate change, there will be catastrophic effects on agriculture and food production at a time when the world population is growing uncontrollably, especially in developing nations, such as African countries. For example, it is estimated that Africa's population will double by the year 2050. Ladies and gentlemen, due to climate change, our planet Earth is in peril. Excellencies, destructive environmental practices are also known to contribute adversely to our planet being in peril. Such destructive practices include indiscriminate littering, pollution of our environment and our water bodies, building on water courses, poor sanitation, lack of planning of our cities and country areas, as well as poor environmental regimens associated with mining and the extraction of petroleum resources. In its latest report on climate change released on 31st March 2014, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC in short, contends that, and I quote it, with high levels of warming that result from continued growth in greenhouse gas emissions, risks will be challenging to manage, and even serious and sustained investments in adaptation will face limits. End of quote. This is why there's the utmost need for various governments and the international community to ensure a high-level political commitment towards the full achievement of the 2015 Global Climate Change Legal Agreements. This is to take place in Paris, December of 2015. Indeed, the scientific evidence necessitating this agreement is so powerful that decision by the leadership of the world, political leaders, cannot be postponed. To this end, in September this year, the United Nations Secretary General is organizing a summit of heads of state and governments, as well as civil society and business community, for them to pledge their commitments to the impending Paris conference, December of next year. Having been appointed a United Nations Secretary General Special Envoy on Climate Change, I am particularly concerned with how the world community intends to tackle the scourge of climate change. Surely, Africa needs to mainstream itself into the present world of globalization. Africa has been described as the last frontier of human development, and the African opportunity is frequently being talked of in financial capitals of the world these days. The temptation, therefore, Excellencies, is for Africa to follow the path of the industrialized world and pursue carbon-emitting industries in our quest to satisfy our developmental needs. However, in the face of the devastating effects of these industries on our planet Earth by way of climate change, as discussed earlier, Africa should pause and give real thought to sustainable development. This is necessary because the impact of climate change is overarching to both developing and developed worlds and to all sectors of human endeavor. And as the IPCC warns, unless the target of global temperature increases of not more than 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels are met within such timelines by mid-century, that's the year 2050, the world might get to be so overheated that the effects of climate change will be irreversible. We all have a duty, therefore, to ourselves and to posterity to work towards arresting the human causes of climate change. We should sustain our planet. In this vein, ladies and gentlemen, it is worthy of note that the international community, led by the United Nations and the Open World Group, proposed to follow up the Millennium Development Goals within the post-2015 development paradigm, which has been termed the Sustainable Development Goals. It is aimed as an answer to the need to further strengthen the fight against the problems brought about by the lack of rounded development, including poverty and hunger. Happily, the latest draft of the SDG proposals have Goal 7 as, and I quote, ensure access to affordable, sustainable, and reliable modern energy services for all. As Africa seeks to integrate with the rest of the world, Africa needs to satisfy the developmental aspirations of its peoples. And as I have mentioned earlier, central to this must be the provision of energy access to all of its peoples. It is in the light of this and the exigencies of the times, with the world facing the ravages of climate change, that the African energy equation cannot be balanced without sustainable energy. Sustainable energy is the provision of energy that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their needs. Common sources of sustainable energy are all renewable energy sources, such as hydroelectricity, solar energy, wind energy, wave power, geothermal energy, and bioenergy. This should also include technologies that improve energy efficiency. Sustainable energy, by definition, should be reliable and beneficial for our health, our economy, and our environment. It should be affordable with rapidly increasing technologies, ensured by sustained research. Otherwise also known as renewable energy, sustainable energy is opportunity. It transforms lives, economies, and the planet. At the launching of the United Nations Decade of Sustainable Energy for All in June this year, Mr. John Ash, current President of the United Nations General Assembly, had this to say: the history of the development of modern society is inextricably intertwined with the story of the development of energy, and its impact on the natural, social,